Okay, in the second video on conflict theories, we're looking at Marxism and the Marxist perspective of the family. Okay, this guy here, Karl Marx, founding father along with Friedrich Engels in the late 19th century, they developed a communist manifesto, and from that sprouted Marxism. And Marxism believes that a capitalist society is basically an unfair, unequal conflict between the capitalists, those at the top, those ones who own the production, the means of production, and those who are the working class, those who are working for these capitalists and being exploited for profit. All society institutions are geared towards maintaining a capitalist system in the eyes of the Marxists, and that includes the family. So the functions of a family are no different. They're geared towards the survival of capitalism. So Marxists argue that a key factor in determining how society works and is shaped, including the family, is this mode of production and who owns and controls production. So the tools, the machinery, the materials, the labour, who does that? Capitalists look at this in terms of inheritance of property, and it's normally passed on from father to child, and continues to grow like that. In the early days, Marxists see the first type of society as a primitive communism, so that's classless, so there's no private property, no one owns anything. Instead, all members own the means of production, so the farmland, etc., etc. At this stage, there wasn't really much such thing as a family. What Friedrich Engels believes existed as a promiscuous horde or a tribe, so there were no restrictions on sexual relationship, there was no ownership of land, there was no father-son to pass things on to. But as production actually increased, society's wealth began to increase, and there needed to be some sort of hierarchy of who owned what and who owned what land that was best for them. So Friedrich Engels developed further this idea that society changed, and that as family developed, men could pass on their inheritance and property because they didn't want it going to anyone, they wanted to go into their own. And by developing a family and having a partner, you knew that your kids were your kids, basically. Okay, so instead of sowing your seed to loads of different women, you had one woman, and you know that that child was your child, and you could pass on the property to them. Marriage also allowed the men to control women's sexuality as well, so they became an instrument for the production of children. So they became very much like one purpose. There was one purpose for women, and that was to produce children who then, in Friedrich Engels' eyes, men could pass on their stuff to. Women would only ever be liberated in the eyes of Marxists if this kind of private ownership of property, but also private ownership of them, was actually overthrown. So Marxists believe that a classless society would be gained through a collective ownership, and that there wasn't any need for a patriarchal nuclear family if there was no need to pass on private property. So if people didn't own things, if it became the property of the common collective, then we wouldn't need to have a family, because we wouldn't need to know who our son or daughter was, but particularly son. We wouldn't need to pass on our private property. Now, until we got rid of this ownership, a single private ownership, women wouldn't be liberated, and we would always live in this patriarchal nuclear family where men are in charge. Okay, Marxists also argue that the family actually performs a key ideological function for capitalism, and family is actually bad. They believe that family helps kind of maintain this idea or belief that this is the way things should be, and that this inequality is justifiable, and this socialization actually kind of keeps capitalism running, and it persuades people that it's fair or natural or it's unchangeable. So capitalists want us to believe that this is the way things should be, this is the way things always are, and this is for the good of society. One way a family actually does this is through the socialization. So we socialize our children to believe that this is the way it is, this is the hierarchy, and that unfortunately there's nothing we can really do about it. So parents have power over children, employers have power over your parents, and men are actually in charge. So this primary socialization accustoms children to this idea. Eli Zaretsky also identifies that family actually offers a safe haven from this harsh capitalist world. So men go to work and they're exploited, but they go home and there's a safe haven where they're in charge and everything's alright, and we haven't got this harsh, horrible, exploitive world outside of us, and it's a very private life. However, Zaretsky also argues that this is a bit of an illusion, really, because what's the likelihood if you've had a really hard day and you're being exploited, that a man comes home and is just quite happy and stuff like that? There's this idea that men go home and they are served by women, and exploited. Women are exploited by men, and this is like a capitalism within the actual household, and that not all of the family members can meet the needs to make things better. Okay, third idea that Marxists really look at is this capitalism exploiting workers, but also exploiting us in terms of what we need. So not only are we being exploited in terms of work, but we're being exploited when we are spending money that we own. So we become a unit of consumption. So in the past, whereas we were very self-sufficient and we looked after ourselves, we now have washing machines and fridge freezers and microwaves and hoovers and stuff like that. So we're now actually buying things, and this continues our exploitation of labour. So if we're buying all of this crap, people have got to make this stuff. So Marxists believe that if we don't actually buy it and there's no need to produce it, people aren't going to be exploited by these capitalists. There's many ways that it affects our consumption. So think about advertising. Advertisers urge families to, buy the latest products. You've got to have the latest fridge freezer, the latest TV, especially when the World Cup's coming around or we're watching football or whatever. We have to have this, okay? And they show you a picture. There's like mum and dad and 2 kids, and they're sitting around, they're enjoying stuff, and they're having a KFC or something like that. The media also targets children particularly, and it's something like the pestering them. They're trying to get kids to persuade the parents to buy something, so they'll make something look really, really good and geared towards them. McDonald's stick Happy Meals and stuff like that, so kids say, well, mom, I need to have this Happy Meal, I need to have this the latest thing. Trying to get kids to think that I need to have this pair of trainers or whatever, then it's media is quite unfair in that. So that links into children who lack the latest clothes are kind of mocked and stigmatized by the peers. Who wants their child being bullied at school because I haven't got the latest pair of Nikes or Adidas or whatever, or they they need the best kind of clothes or need to go to the pictures and things like that. So the Marxists say that the family are performing these loads of different functions and maintaining a capitalist society. So you've got the inheritance of a private property, socialization, and also the unit of consumption. Okay, for the lesson, what I need you to do is bring your notes. I need you to bring your notes on feminism. I need you to bring your notes on Marxism. What I also need you to do is look into the idea of Marxist perspective and come up with some criticisms. I want you to bring some criticisms with you. Obviously, there'll be questions to answer on the blog. Any questions, issues, send me an email. I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.